architecture is the one professionally known for.
Okay.
I'm professionally known for, but that's a part-time job. I'm a full-time husband and father. And it's a very important part of who I am and what I do. It was architecture or medicine that were standing out. And
I see.
finally architecture won.
And your parents didn't have any decision?
I was completely free to take a decision. Out of this desire, I found my idea was that fourth year teaches you a certain discipline in the process of design. And KNUST, I lift my hat to them. They really teach you good architecture. It was during my fourth year, my national service year, teaching the faculty, that I became a Christian.
Okay.
It was very special for me.
What happened then?
Because I used to argue a lot.
So, for many of you who don't know him, his name is... It's better I don't do that. Maybe he should introduce himself. So, please introduce yourself to my wonderful audience.
So my name is Ralph Sutherland, and that's the best introduction.
Okay, so Mr. Ralph Sutherland, what do you do?
Well, I think I cover three important things in my life.
Okay.
Architecture is the one professionally known for.
Okay.
I'm professionally known for, but that's a part-time job.
Huh? And now I'm confused. Wait, what is the full-time job?
When you say what you do, most people just think of their career.
Okay.
Their working career. But I'm a full-time husband and father. And it's a very important part of who I am and what I do.
Okay.
I'm also very ardent about family life.
Okay.
So we help and support different people and groups to build, if I put it in more architectural terms, to build homes, not just houses.
To build homes where they can live happily.
Where the structure for living happily is thought through and given some wheels.
Okay, so that's how, okay. So you're a full-time husband and father before you're a part-time architect and a part-time business owner.
I don't know, I guess because I'm self-employed, yes, business owner, but...
Would you call it self-employed at this point?
Well, why not? Because nobody pays me. If I don't work, I don't earn any money.
But you are not what we would call a self-employed person.
Why? What is a self-employed person in your opinion?
In my opinion, I think a self-employed person is like a one-man team. He does everything.
I see your perspective.
Yes, from top to bottom. He's the one in the food chain. He's the food chain.
I have a few stories in that direction.
I'll be so glad to hear them. But yeah, that is my perspective on like
when you fill a tax form, they define it differently.
How is it defined?
You're self-employed. If you own a firm or you're a partner, you're not a company. So you yourself are the person, the legal person, as against a company that's a legal person. So in the tax systems, you're deemed to be self-employed. Check it, we'll see.
I'm now a bit confused, but with some clarity will be good. So I'm a business owner and I have maybe a director. I have other people that work with me, and all the way down to the food chain, maybe there's the one who just organizes the books, so accounts, there's like an account section, there's the finance section, there's the advertisement section. Are you saying even at that point, you're still self-employed? That's if you are still in the company as the head.
In a firm.
In a firm.
A company is a structure in which there is a legal person created differently from you.
Okay.
So there you do have directors, shareholders, etc. In a partnership or a sole, what do they call it? Sole proprietorship. You are employing yourself.
This video is proudly brought to you by Board House Electrical, your one-stop place for all your solar needs. Imagine doing some serious work, then your lights go off. Charlie, ECG. That means you have a productive day because you solely depend on ECG to produce your work. With a complete solar system from Board House Electrical, you can provide all your power needs 24/7. You know, I'm even wondering why we are wasting the power of the sun when we have a lot of it. Like a lot of it. Charlie, the sun, it a bear no. I'm not even going to talk about the increasing cost of electricity these days. Let's not even go there. Let's not go there. They said the thing has increased by 35%, but you are buying double of what you used to buy. Contact Board House Electrical with my promo code ISVisual and let them take care of all your solar needs today. All right, let's jump back into the interview.
If you set up a company and it has, you can be a non-architect and set up a structure in which you employ architects and they do the work for you.
Okay.
And you don't have to step there. You just manage it from the board level.
Okay.
But in a partnership, you're directly involved.
Oh, okay. 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 So that's why. Okay. So if it was more like you manage the business from a board directive or on that level, and you don't have to be involved in the nitty-gritties of the daily activities or like the monthly activities, then that is when you can term as a company. But if it's not partnership, you are still self-employed. Just a higher level of self-employed.
In my humble opinion.
Okay. Well, how did it all get to that point? Why did you choose to go the partnership way? Is it because of your sense of building a home or being a full-time husband and a father?
Can we start a little earlier than that?
Okay, we can. Okay, so how did it all start? Where did you school, and what has been the educational background for being a partner in a great firm like Sutherland and Sutherland?
I don't know about the great, but let's start from school.
Okay.
I narrowly made it into architecture school. Not because I didn't have sufficiently good grades, but because I was headed to medical school.
Okay.
And 3 days before I actually filled the application forms, 2 friends from KNUST came to our house. They said, how can you do medicine? You're an architect. And in those 3 days, I changed direction.
How?
I filled the forms for architecture.
But how can you pivot? Because I know people that have been like, oh, I'm going to do medicine, I'm going to be a medical student. They have it from like primary school and it's all cooked up in their head. They don't, it's not something they will let go in just 3 days.
I had a very wide-ranging choice.
Okay.
Because my exposure allowed me to have that from my childhood.
What exposure is that?
I could have been an artist.
Okay.
As a career. I could have done agriculture.
Explains the plenty plants.
And I could have done medicine because I was very good with sciences and biology. I loved biology.
Okay.
And then there was the business, so it's art, architecture, medicine. There was one more, agriculture.
Yeah.
I used to farm a lot.
Wait, we'll get to that part.
So it was from that background that the choice was difficult, ranging
have
like
different options.
And medicine seemed to be the best offering out of the 3. You don't earn much money normally as an artist.
Yeah.
Agriculture can be very temperamental. It depends on the rains, etc., etc. And you can do it on the side anyway.
Yeah.
So it was architecture or medicine that were standing out. And
I see.
finally architecture won.
And your parents didn't have any decision?
I was completely free to take a decision.
They would have supported you any direction you took?
I used to build every Christmas. We used to build Bronyadai.
With what?
Bronyadai with bamboo and palm fronds.
You used to have pictures of this?
No, it may be, but I can't remember where they are.
Oh.
I was a child.
Maybe one of these brilliants that will take time off and something like that.
It was just a thing to create a different design every year.
So wait. Bronyadai, the Bronyadai, is it this big?
No. It was done so that inside it, all my cousins and my siblings and friends would come and we would have a nativity show. We all walked inside. We made a manger.
So it's big.
Sang carols. Yeah. It's the size of this room easily. And we wove.
I stand up the builder things, but not to this level.
We wove the palm leaves to make the patterns of the walls. We decorated it. We'd use the Anyurba Kania, the fancy kerosene lamp.
Wow. Okay, so now back to the 3 days. So you switched within 3 days. Were there comments like you don't know what you're doing or what happened? Nobody questioned.
Perfectly understood and accepted. There was never a question.
Okay, so now fast forward. When you went to architecture school, was it like anything that you had imagined?
My first year was boring.
Why?
Because a lot of what was being taught, I thought, like in construction, I had a fair idea of it from having been building myself already.
Yeah.
And it was very slow paced.
Okay, so you felt like everything was going too slow. Like, when do we get to the fun part? So when you got to the fun part, I hope you still saw it fun.
Yes. In the second year, I was pulled aside by a lecturer. And I think he gave me the worst advice I had ever in my schooling. He said, choose between art and architecture. You can't do both. You can shift and go to the art faculty if you like. If you want to stay here, stop the art.
Why?
Because I used to draw artistically and express myself. So I think it was not just me. There were a couple of other people in the class
that did that.
That were very artistically inclined. So from that time going, a lot of presentation in the architecture faculty drew attention from students. When we had a jury, the art students would come. And it was even worse after my year. In 2 or 3 years down the line, it was incredible what the architects were doing.
So then how are you mixing it?
No, the shapes, I mean, you designed for aesthetic pleasure.
But it was functional.
It was functional.
But it was just too flexible for that time.
I think for the particular gentleman.
But other lecturers didn't have any issue with it.
I don't think as much. But we wore through it. But I think it tinted, because when I look at some of my sketches, non-school sketches, project sketches, they were very creative. I remember I designed a cathedral made of columns of light. So if you looked at, they were glass columns.
Okay.
But they were lit up from a concealed light source. And all the main pillars of the temple were just pillars of light.
You used to have pictures of them?
And that one was just a sketch.
Just a sketch.
So when I look back, sometimes I think I lost some of that from that comment.
Just by that comment?
Yeah.
But isn't it something you can easily pick up?
Well, self-employed means that sometimes you don't have time, but sometimes you just don't have time to rest and relax and do that type of thing. I was hoping as one approaches the older phrases, but still,
it's still the same thing. Oh.
But I mean, sometimes such thoughts, they are a pleasure just to yourself. You're not had time to work them out.
Well, I remember sometime a lecturer made a comment to my work, and I asked him why he was making that comment. And he just said, he just doesn't like it, so I should just change it. And I looked at him and told him, I know you don't like it, but I like it. So as long as there's nothing structurally wrong and it is aesthetically pleasing to me, I will leave it there. And because of that, the lecturer marked me down.
That's unfortunate, but it happens. So
what would you do in such a situation? What did you do in that situation? Did you have to tone down just to suit?
I think after that, I began to learn the mechanics of architecture, surveying, structures, how to integrate layers of things technically and do it efficiently.
So you took the artistic side of you and sent it to the more engineering side of it.
It was worth it because I found detailing very, very interesting.
Yes, detailing. Guys, I have a story to share about the detailing, but people would go there. I see. So 3rd year, 4th year.
Yeah, I mean, some of the field surveys we did, for instance, where we had to learn to survey practically on the ground. I found it fascinating we used to draw a surveyor's chain. They don't use them anymore. And still a surveyor's chain.
Why would you go through that?
Because we were learning surveying. So we actually did the survey work for a small village twice. Once in Achenim in the Western region. And once in what was the name? It wasn't Nandom. It wasn't Habili. I've forgotten the name. Gonu, where there were some ancient city walls around a northern village, right on the border with Burkina. And we had to go and survey the walls and the township and draw the maps for it.
And was any of that used?
It's like the others. They get into portfolios in the faculty stores.
I have a different idea of that, but not for today. If it hurts my heart that you'd spend so much time, put in so much work, and do some group works that you know would work very well for the community or for the place that you did the project for, and it's not used.
Yeah, it's a problem with academia, but you have to remember that the schism sometimes is not the fault of the university, because you have to connect money to the project, and the university is not set up or equipped to do that. So whilst you created the work, it is the bracket of finding industry to raise the capital, because it is in their interest, and industry is profit related directly.
Profit motivated.
If you are talking about business. So in other places like research for pharmaceuticals, they can see possibilities. So they'll fund university research.
So why not?
So when you go and survey a village on the western region that is being inundated by the sea, what is the profit motive for industry?
Okay, well, if the standard of living...
Yeah, so it has to be a social enterprise funded by government. And there are 7,000 plus villages located.
So every village wants the...
So it's a bit like the work of Francis Carey, that you have to find ways in which the solutions you bring are indigenously oriented. The community can identify with it. He struggled even to set up some of his prime schemes.
I see.
And it was only after a while that the community caught on. So it's not an easy road, but especially in a developing world, the tertiary institutions have to restructure philosophically to come a little nearer to how communities can use the information
that they come up with. Interesting. Now, moving from your school days to practice, where did you first do your... let's start from the internship, please. Where was your first internship?
My first internship was with a really good firm. They were called DeVega Gruta and Partners. They had an office in the place near the lighthouse in downtown Accra.
Oh, okay.
And at that time, I think the architect Brown, Adotei Brown, and architect Osei Kufuor, I think they all worked there.
Oh,
so it was a top rate, one of the best
at that time.
Yeah, and I remember that was those are the T-square days. So you had a 3-arrow drawing board, and this was massive.
Yeah.
And drawings at 1:50 by hand for working drawings were special. I remember two things from that experience. One, it was the technicians who taught us how to draft. We used to draw with pens, and they'll look at us and then they'll come beside you and say, don't draw with the pen down, always draw up. And we asked why, and they said because the ink coming out, if you draw like this and you lift the pen, it leaves a clean line. If you draw the other way, it leaves a smudge. And I've always told young architects when they come into the office, don't look down on technicians. They can teach you a lot.
Yeah, I know when I came here, you did mention, you mentioned that to me.
The second lesson was having to make changes on tracing paper. Was done with a razor blade.
Yes.
And if you are drawing 1:50 a bank building and they say remove this east side of the
that's a whole lot
2 days of razor blade work. But I think that it gives you a certain connective feel between you and your drawing board. You understand how to be careful and to think things through before you draw them, because coming backwards is not easy. A computer has changed that. And I guess, but it means perhaps that people don't think as much when they're drawing. It's easy to undo, but the system, the thought process is lost.
I know when in level 100, they didn't actually want us to touch anything with the machine. It was more pencil, more sketches. I understood why they were doing that, because in normal sense, anything you spend more time with, you'd naturally think through the things before you do it. You do it and do it so well because now you've mastered like what the technician taught you, that you draw up, you don't draw down. You won't know it. If you didn't go there, you won't know. You keep drawing down. And one day it may hit you, maybe one of the strokes that you do, then you're like, let me draw up. Then you draw up and you see it. That's how you realize or you even learn from it. So the more time you spend on it, yes. But I also have an argument on that, or I have a point that I believe.
Tell me.
Okay. So in the days, like you would say, you would draw 1 in 50 and you'd have to spend so much time to make changes. But now you can draw in whatever scale you want to draw. All you have to do is change the scale just below.
Nobody belittles the computer.
Exactly.
But it's like in particular, one of the disadvantages or the things to watch, let me not call it a disadvantage, is that the rate of technological change is so fast, we don't know what it's doing to us. So the ability to respond to messages on your phone is instant. And people get annoyed when you don't respond to them. So a social angst develops against you. In the old days, if I had to walk somewhere to pick a telephone, I could choose when I would do it.
Yes.
And my head is not spinning from 15 messages I haven't yet responded to. what does it do to social relationships when you all sit in a group you've gone out for a meal, or we're still a boy and his girlfriend, and they're both sitting opposite each other waiting for the meal, and they're not communicating. So there's a story that is coming, and the same is true for this fascinating 3D tools and AI. The story is still coming. So it's not all advantage. That's the point I'm making. And you need to balance it.
In true perspective, if I'm even doing anything design related, I just have to. I don't know. There's something in the applying the strokes on the sheets and getting it done first on the sheets before moving it to the piece. It's like you're able to solve all the problems on the sheets, or most of it, before you move into. There are designs that I've done straight on PC, and I can see clearly how rigid it is, because maybe I've not gotten to that point of mastery of like being able to interpret the ideas without necessarily sketching. But I also don't think that is the issue. I think sketching and doing paperwork, a whole lot of paperwork before actually going to the PC, makes everything easier, because all the problems have been solved here. All you are doing is just...
It's not necessarily all solved. I think the man who taught me how to draw used to say something. He says there's a connection between the pencil, your hand, your eye, and your brain. When you practice a lot, that connection becomes very strong, and you're able to interpret the thing in your head much more fluently. So it would mean that on the computer, maybe there's another synapse that you use in order to achieve that kind of thing. But you can't get around the practice systems. This motion and all that is going on behind it in your imagination is a working zone that we need to not neglect.
So with that in mind, after your internship, when you now officially finished school, how excited were you to actually start work as an architect, considering all the stress you would have gone through in your final year?
Forgive me for taking you back to school. Okay. But when I finished my 4th year, I had done very well.
Oh.
And
first class.
It was the second first class in the life of architecture school KNUST, after over 20 years of the school being active. And the person who had been my mentor was Catherine Aqua, who had gotten the first class many years before.
Hey, first class in architecture school is long to you.
So I was, the natural progression is start doing your masters. I actually had a scholarship to go to the Architectural Association School in London.
Tell me.
And this was another 3-day thing. I decided not to go. My heart just said no. Many years later, I think I understood why. I think when God touches your life and wants you to do something, He gives you appetite or non-appetite for different things. And out of this desire, I found my idea was that 4th year teaches you a certain discipline in the process of design. And KNUST, I lift my hat to them. They really teach you good architecture in method.
Okay.
5th year would only be a repeat of that, but using it in an urban situation instead of a smaller scale.
A small scale.
And 6th year would just be doing practicing it all over again. So I said I'll do my national service. So I taught for a year in the faculty. And
I'm still wondering why, was it a 100% scholarship?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was one of the best architecture schools in the world at that time. But I just didn't have an appetite. So it was during my 4th year, my national service year, teaching the faculty, that I became a Christian.
Oh. Okay.
It was very special for me.
What happened then?
Because I used to argue a lot.
Wait, were you one of those people who would argue like,
I was a good
complete showdown, like this doesn't exist, this is not
just complete. I mean, I told the guy who I used to talk to, my next door neighbor is called Senor Tete. He's also an architect.
Yeah.
And we got on very well. But we used to stand on the corridor outside and argue. And he would say, Ralph, you have to be born again. And I would say, why? I'm a good guy. I don't do the things the other guys do. I'm settled and happy. I have good friends. I go to church. And he said, no, you don't understand. And so we'd spend hours talking about creation, the universe, the place of man, life and death. And in his words, I used to win all the arguments, or appear to. What he didn't know was that after a while, I'd go back to my room and read. And I said to myself, Ralph, you're only 24 years old. And you're arguing about life, death, eternity, hell, heaven, out of 24 years of experience. What
can you say 24 years of experience? Because when did you actually start moving?
What are you doing? You have no authority except yourself. And that's what caught my attention. He had an authority. He says, but Ralph, the Bible says this and the Bible says that. And after a while, I decided I wanted to stop being so full-headed. I better find an authority. So I picked a Bible to read. Several months later, he now left. He sent me a book called More Than a Carpenter, in which there was an intellectual challenge. I mean, I deemed myself an intellectual. It says, if you haven't read the scriptures, you have no right arguing about what they say. And then it says, take this argument. If Jesus says the kind of things he said about himself in the Bible, there can only be three results you can draw from it, conclusions. 1, he was a liar. 2, he was a lunatic. Or 3, he was whom he said he was Lord. And it raised arguments, and I was shocked at how much intellectual debate has gone on in the literary world and in the research world, in universities and courtrooms, debating these issues. And the conclusion was there for me. He couldn't have been a liar. He was too upright from his own life conduct and the kinds of things he did. And no liar will lie his way to a cross. I mean, at the last minute,
lie your way to death. I'm sorry, I was like, this is not true.
And he went to the second one. He said he was a lunatic, but the cogency of his mind can't have been off track. He knew good logic and sound reasoning, and it had depth, and it was cogent. So it doesn't make sense to say he's a lunatic. So you're left with only one conclusion. He was whom he said he was. And he was killed for whom he said he was, because there was no sin found in him. Those arguments bowled me over. And I had to say, I want to take this into serious consideration. And by the time that consideration was over, the one thing that I was left with was, I'm not a good guy, as good as I think I am. Not because of behavior, necessarily, even though I was no angel, but because I didn't want God to control my life. That's when I realized I was a sinner and that I needed a savior. So that part of my story changed my course. I then went in to do a master's in KNUST, original research. At that time, it had long been stopped. They call it the master's liberally now, but at that time, everybody did PG Dip. PG Dip, postgraduate diploma in architecture, which was a professional degree. So I said to myself, I asked my professor, can I practice for the masters? Because I want to practice, but I want to do something different. And he said yes. So I then did a research that underscores some of the philosophies I work with. It was called, the thesis was the use of the outdoor room in Ghanaian architecture.
The use of the outdoor room in Ghanaian architecture.
Let me show you something.
I'm very much interested. You have this here?
Yep. I loved this research. I went all around Ghana and
All around Ghana.
yeah, nationwide, looking at courtyards and studying how they are formed in the mass planning stage, in the household level, in the expressions that they give. And I decided that I would make it a pictorial thesis, but I would back it up with the text on this side.
Okay, so 1 second. Did you sketch all this?
Yep.
Hey.
But the thing about it is that I discovered some things that I wouldn't have dreamt of in courtyards. The people who come from a patrilineal compound have a different pattern of courtyards from the people who come from matrilineal compounds.
What was the difference?
You read the story. It's not our emphasis today. But that means that we are very sophisticated. A concept my mother taught me, that don't look at illiterate people and put them down, because some of the sophistication of their thinking is way beyond what some universities know or fathom. And this account then moved from the traditional to the contemporary. So we started looking at the styles of government housing and the interpretations of it, the effect it has upon town planning. So we looked at some of the tenement housing in Kumasi, which is peculiarly a mix between the traditional and the more European. And we postulated how this was my professor, Soyobo Apartments, who tried to bring the courtyard upstairs.
Okay.
And the portion about how it can be used in more modern terms. But courtyards are worldwide, they're universal. Africans have different expressions of them.
Yeah.
And to learn how to input it into architecture has been an ongoing quest for me. I thought it would be useful. It just occurred to me when we were talking that you would get that as a context.
That's some very nice sketches.
So it was
Like a complaint.
It was from here that I went on to do enter into practice.
Okay.
And I'd said this, my prof wanted me, this Professor Usadu, he really twisted my arm that I should become a lecturer and join the staff. And I said, Prof, I want to practice before I preach.
Lecture.
And he was very unhappy, but I think it was the correct decision. I told him that my anchorage was that in my earliest years, it was those people who had practiced who influenced me the most in architecture school. This was Hannah Schreckenbach, who passed recently.
What's his name?
Hannah Schreckenbach.
Hannah. That's it.
And then there was another, Dr. Glia Perry. And I valued their input. When a lecturer walked in and he had been practicing, the message was quite different
From the academics. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I remember some of the lectures that practiced and some that were just purely lectures. Wow.
So I walked into my first employment with a firm I only lasted there 2 years, not because I didn't want to stay, but because the economy was so bad that they couldn't pay us. I'd been going to work for 6 months, and most of that time, I'd worked there for over a year, but for the last 6
months,
they couldn't pay us, and I was using my own money to if not walking, And I sat down with my boss and said, "Sir, it's not working. I can't continue like this." And he himself was partly sad and partly relieved because it was one less person to worry about. So he blessed me and I left. And I opened a small studio, doing small jobs myself. And that lasted for a few years. I got married to my wife, who is an architect. And through thick and thin, we've come this far. But she has been an incredible contribution to the business end. She's a better business person than I am.
You are. So you are the creative side.
Yeah.
And she's the business side.
And so I got employed at some point, and I think it was also a necessary step from God because we were struggling.
So this is before the firm started.
Yeah, so Ralph's studio was what I started and set up. And I mean, we won. I think one of my most meaningful designs was done in Ralph's studio.
Oh,
we won a competition for International Year of Shelter for the homeless.
Oh, okay.
Well, International Year of Shelter. And it was an international competition, but in the local bracket, we won 2 out of the 3 slots.
Oh.
And I was so happy because the government said the prize was that they were going to build a number of the units.
And the people.
Yeah, and when you're working in a poor economy, you don't get much drawing built.
Not a lot of
30% of what you've drawn, it just stays as paper, and it's not fulfilling. So really excited and gung-ho, and of course it never happened. Neither was there any prize money. What happened? So I was very disappointed in the government because I thought, you have a housing thing on your hands. And here's a really great solution. We built, so finally a friend came to me, and he was part of the Ghanaian returnees from Nigeria, 1985, thereabouts. And he said to me, "Ralph, I've been moving through 6 homes since I returned. Sometimes it took a month. I paid rent advances, and it's just not working. I just keep getting moved again and moved again. I'm fed up." He said, "The last place I was in, a friend invited me to come and stay with him. I had a wife and a child. The friend had a 2-bedroom house, a wife and a child. And he moved out of 1 bedroom and gave us 1 bedroom in his house." That, for me, was one of the definitions of friendship. A few months later, he showed me the letter. The friend wrote to him. He couldn't talk to him. He said, "Please leave. There's too much tension." And that's when he walked into our office and said, "I want you to build me anything. As long as it's my house, I'll move into it. I have a piece of land in Ofanko." At that time, Ofanko was like the equivalent of beyond the world.
Beyond the bushes, down there.
And so I said, "I'm really excited God has done this to you, because now we can finally build one of my houses." So we saw his place, we gave him that plan. When I tell this story, I had to go back to him many years later and verify that. Am I exaggerating, or was it true? 6 bags of cement, he got up to the roof. The thesis of our design was that in the tropics, the most important part of your house after the foundation is a roof. If you can put a roof up, you can clad it with anything, plastic sheets, cardboard, temporary something that you can move into your own place.
Okay.
6 columns, 1 bag of cement for each column. He's up to roofing.
What did you clad it with?
A material called Varioboard. It was an Apotech development in which they clad it with it's pressed wood chips in cement mixture with bamboo reinforcement. So it comes in long boards like this, and with 15 or 20 boards you clad a room.
So that was the first.
So the phase 1 of his building was a 1-bedroom house, complete with a kitchen and a bathroom and a living room.
And he roofed it.
He roofed it, and
he stayed in its
he moved. So the first time I call this my prize design in meaning, because it answered a human need. And ever since then, I've never been happy with just siwe bimame, copy. You tailor a built environment to suit a human need and enhance it. And that's the vision statement in my office, that we create unique built environments that help people interpret God's purpose for their lives and up the game a little for them.
So at every point you've mentioned God. I want to know what role God has actually played, apart from changing your mind from going to the scholarship that you had, and how he has been a main factor in your life.
From childhood, I've loved nature. And you can't be in nature and not get some kind of a tingle that there's a creator. If there is one, and it can get personal, then there's a wonder world opened to you about adventuring into that relationship. And I think that's what happened with me, my friend on the bridge, and the Lord Lion lunatic story. Once that hump was over, the whole of all the creative impulses I'd grown up with found meaningful expression. You can be egotistical as an architect. I think it's one of architecture's problems.
Yeah.
But when you are into the meaningfulness of purpose, and it's a God-given purpose, it's distasteful. It doesn't sit right. Yes, I enjoy creativity. I love architecture. I said, if I believed in reincarnation and I came back again, I'll still ask for the same profession.
There are some people who don't want to say that. Like, they don't want to come back and do the same thing.
Wonderful profession. You are mixed into the lives of people. By the time we did the ACP estates, that was where I got employed to help set up the estate for a company that was looking for a means of diversifying its income and business. And just to create a space with the questions, how do you create neighborliness within an estate environment in which everybody wants their plot? In the debates we had in the management about no wall, American style, half-height wall, or full wall, we finally came up with half-height walls and hedges between houses. You can stretch your neck out and how is it? There's a life to live. And the questions of how do you handle dogs, the neighbors
and all that.
And to draw people out of their home onto a community lifeline, which we designed. And fortunately, the estate didn't get built fully to vision after I left. Yeah, but it's there. People love it. There are trees. It's a treed environment. Everybody comes and says, "Hey, I've never thought of this in Ghana. It looks like you're outside, And the residents, most of them love the place. Those who come there like nature, really love the place, and it helps to knit a community. So if you ask me God's role in my life creatively and in principle, it's helped to structure an engagement in the built environment that knits into people's lives and aspirations. So I can illustrate it another way. We did a new head office for an office, some people who had an office in downtown UTC area, and they were growing, so they wanted to
expand.
They bought a new property in a better address, and they wanted to have it designed and expanded to suit their new growth line. We designed it. It was a colonial style old building. We added a modern touch with it without defacing the old one, and with good complementariness. We designed the space to have language, architectural language. So the boardroom has the vision on the glass wall that you can see the light filter through as everybody walks past. And you're looking down into the operations hall from certain angles. And the staff loved it.
I hope you
by the time they moved into this building, the posture of staff changed. This was now the management telling us. Their shoulders were squarer, their heads were lifted up. There was a little step in their daily gains, and their profits changed.
Their profits I like that part.
That for me is meaningful. You see what I mean? They became very respected, etc. The building is not 100% to account for it, but it contributed. And for me, that's a meaningful role for an architect. Residential, commercial, educational. So Ashesi is like that as well. That has been a privilege, because it's like from 2009, every so often they call you back again, come and do something. That means you said something right, architecturally. And I don't think the students realize the environment consciously, but it must say something to them.
Oh yeah, I've been there a couple of times. We used to go to sites. I liked it. I loved it, actually. I wanted to school there, but I couldn't. Just couldn't. But yeah, for many of you who know Ashesi, if you go there, when you enter, even from the entrance, you feel different. You just feel different. It's one of those designs that sits on the landscape of the land so well, and it's not like they are cutting things now, ramps, stairs. You would actually feel connected to the place. It has a way. It's nice. It's very nice. I'll probably add footage of that so that you guys, for those of you who don't know Ashesi, you can even Google Ashesi and you see them. But yeah, this is the firm that handles the design, and it's not easy. You heard him since 2009. That's a long time. 40 years.
It's hard work. I mean, to go up those hills and get a visual feel of the next site you're going to do, and to interpret it into the client's vision. And those are the helps I think God gives in design. We say here, design comes from the Lord.
That's true. Some people not in the Lord would argue that out and be like, when I get high, I can get inspired, all those things out. Please.
Hell, I don't have anything to say for other people, but for me, that's how it has worked.
So, I see. And you mentioned that your wife is the business side, but I believe that with the number of years of practice that you've done with her, you have learned a lot of things from her, things to do, things to look out for, even in prior conversations with clients before they actually become your clients, the conversations that you have with them, how you can navigate around certain comments that they would pass. Because I know your early days, I'm sure you probably did some free designs that you were never excited about. I'm sure you saw some projects and you were highly excited, like, this is the project that I will use to start my entire career, and it never happened.
Yeah.
What have you learned with your many years of practice? How many years is it now?
I've been practicing since 1982.
Okay, yes, let's do the master one. That is about 35 or it's 35. But it's more than that. No, it's what? It was just Is it 14? Is it? No. No, it's not after 40, but it's close to 40.
8 to 12 takes you to 2000. That's what.
Is it 82?
Yeah.
41 years. 41 years. Wow. Okay, so we are going to break it down. In the first decade, what did you? What? I was actually thinking it was more than 30, but I didn't guess it was close to 14. Okay, so in the first decade of practice,
What I learned, I'd like to niggle young architects with.
okay,
Because I always say that you don't stay long enough to learn in firms. Then you're off to doing your own things. And learning is not just a matter of skill building. It's also, I call, for instance, site craft. It's a carpenter who knows wood. It's just not a matter of cutting it or knowing how to make a joint. He understands wood, the smell, the flexural strength, the sense of whether it has integrity within the unseen parts. It's a craftsman who knows when he picks it, he knows what that wood is like. And if you rush around looking for the profit, you'll get it. But the pleasure of the sense of your craft is not found, or is rarely found. I learned to look for that. And the reason why I'm niggling is that I barely managed to get it because I had to move out of employment so early and I was working on my own. So what I did was I affiliated with other senior colleagues, and I would ask them, talk to them, visit them, etc. to learn. I found out that some of my background, because I learned how to do mason assistant, carpenter's assistant, as I was growing up.
now guess we're good.
Yeah, so I understood their craft a little bit. And I realized that if you don't have a sense of what it is like for their work, your detailing doesn't work out too well. So I learned detailing from craftsmen, tradesmen, and I learned to watch them. I was taught to even watch. Most carpenters who hold a saw like this. This is the guiding finger. Most of us, when they ask us to go, so we saw it like this. And it's little things like that. They have application for architecture as well. That when you're designing, there are ways to approach the process of designing that have some of these things in it. And that is craft. It's a craftsmanship. The inspiration of conceptualizing is special, but somebody has to build what you conceive of, and that's where the craft comes in. So in the first 10 years, I think that was my most important gain, to try to knit the craft to the conceptualization.
I see. So you learned every single thing you could from the people that you affiliated with, and you weren't really looking for gain at that time.
Not really. It was survival. Knuckle hard survival. My wife and I tell a story when there was a time we were so broke. We were freshly married. And from that, we encourage people, don't be afraid to marry. Don't wait till you have a car and a house and a thing. We got married. We had very little. And our kitchen was a corridor, 1 meter wide. So when we put a cabinet in, which basically was a sheet of plywood and some legs to hold, and she got pregnant, You couldn't walk, two of us couldn't walk side by side in the kitchen.
It's only one person at a time.
But we then got a job. It was a boys' quarters. And the person was, well, I know that you are big men and so on. He didn't know. I just find some of your draftsmen or something to do it. So I went home to Chris. I said, Chris, you're going to be called architect, but for this one, you pretend you are the draftsman. So we did it so that we could collect the fee for ourselves. We needed it. And when people see us now, they can't believe the journey we've been through. We've been through a tough journey. We worked hard. We've been blessed. We received a lot of grace, opportunities that, because we do not solicit for work. We don't have a marketing strain. And all our work has come through the front door or by recommendation.
Not even one ad anywhere.
It's only recently that we put up a website because it had become popularized. And there's no serious work even through that.
Wow, the fee. So everything is purely by recommendation. That's for the song is not so different, but even I still run ads. I do some form of ad. I just do it. It's not so profitable. It doesn't bring a lot. But yeah, 80% of my clients are purely by recommendation as well.
So,
but some people do it and it works.
Yeah, I don't prescribe it for everybody. But for me, it has been a blessing. That's how we have been sustained.
I see. First 1 decade. First decade. Hey, 41. Oh my God. And the second decade?
The second decade would have been what? 92? Now,
I wasn't even born there.
Now we were fully employed in Ashesi Estate, at least I was, and Chris would open a firm, moving from Ralph's studio to Sutherland and Sutherland. So she
started Sutherland.
She registered Sutherland and Sutherland.
Oh, wow. That's nice. That's really nice.
And held the fort. I used to work on the side with my employer's permission, but she held the fort. And so that was like an organizational phase of structuring. So great practices like petty cash impressed forms, processes in an office. She was cardinal in setting it up.
Yeah, she actually took us through all that when we came here.
She did. She has a good business mind, and she's also a quality control person.
I see. I think.
So it's not just, she's an architect in full, and she has her own stature and right for that.
That's nice. Maybe one of these days we'll have it. Just with your permission. But yeah.
But you were asking about salary, and say somebody told me, it was a lawyer. He said, in my wife's picture, unfortunately I had to take it down because it was too old and tattered. I have to get a new one. These are my children.
Oh, so when they were kids.
The person said, look, keep pictures of your wife and children on your table. When people come and ask for discounts and I remember that we have responsibilities.
Wait, so is this to remind you, or is to show them that please I have responsibilities?
I think it's also good in an office environment to promote your family. That they are part of you, and you don't overwork and forget that you need to go home.
You need to go home.
You have some souls to look after.
I see. Wow. So for all these years, but if you were taken back, you mentioned you would have done it again, but is there something you would have changed along the way?
I think I'd have liked to be more expressive in form.
In form?
How? You get so worked up in a business with deadlines that keeping to your promise about time is important. It's a professional standard. So when you start working and you get a concept, you build a plan, the plan must be functional. I think it's unfair to a client to give them a dysfunctional plan and to work only with form and then try and squeeze function into it is not right. It is part of the ego problem. So meet the client's need and add the technical issues that's like thermal comfort orientation in the conceptualizing of things. But it means if you're not careful, as the deadline grows on you, then the business of making it breathe gets lost.
So if you were to go back, you would have, or you won't get so tied up in the deadline meeting. Or?
Yeah, perhaps. I haven't thought through just what, if I were to go back, what I would do, but or not do. But I think that it's centered around that part in a lot of ways.
So in trying to meet the deadline, you lose that sense of creating that good, comfortable place.
Call it maturing the design. That some journeys for a design need a little bit more time to mature.
To be well cooked. Cooked meats. I see. But in such a situation, would you tell the clients that I need a little bit more time to get this done, right?
See, money is at the other end of that statement. Or some need. My office needs to move. I want to stop paying rent here. So if we are not starting this thing, it's wasting my time. It's wasting my money. And those consider there's an academic year coming.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
You'd have to pay fees. So
you don't have that type of liberty.
So it's a compromise then?
In some ways, but it's not like an unprofessional compromise, because the end result, largely speaking, has been nice.
Okay. And to the young like me, to the young ones like me, or to those starting off their practice, what would you tell them?
Pay your taxes. There's so many young people, I'm using that as an illustration. There's so many young people who are not cooked. And they're making a living, they're buying a car, some are building a house, but they're not doing a full, right professional things. And so they weaken the profession. I used to say that governments, in the way their outlook about paying professionals, they hurt the profession because they count on you to pre-finance the work. So they won't pay you anything. Yeah. And you design and you do the working drawing and they'll get the contract. Then they'll pay the contractor mobilization and they start finding small monies for you, grumbling and complaining about your fees. But the contractor could not have worked without those drawings. And you've used my money to get there because I paid salaries, I paid taxes, I paid rent, fuel, etc. I've looked after myself and the lives of others. The result of that cycle is that the firms grow weaker and weaker if you just stay doing government work. Sometimes the attitude is even in the private sector. And so you don't get firms that thrive, they stand well. And when competition comes for bigger jobs, they can't compete. So the juicy jobs go out to foreigners. Or the few big firms left in the country. And the professional sphere is weakened. So for the kind of training we've had from KNUST, and now some of the new schools coming up, we could become service providers in West Africa. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
But because you're not strong, you can't pay AutoCAD monthly, so everybody's looking the thing. It's a car a year. You see what I mean?
Yes.
And you can't, how many firms can afford it in the country? So my issue is that it's easy to do the back of the boot service that my firm is, but you're not strong. And you cannot migrate to certain levels of work. And so the profession at large is not strong, because all these firms need to be up to a certain minimum standard. There are things I learned from when I was in employment. It was a very little thing. My employer would keep every little piece of paper and file it. And he told me that it was such a piece of paper that saved him in court one day, that the client was accusing him of certain things. And he had just sat with the client on one of these little sticky pad things. And the client had written what he was denying. And he managed to pick it out and give it to his lawyer. And it stopped the case. So filing is so important, and documentation. But that's the craft that I was talking
That's
about.
what we're talking about.
So I want young people to learn the craft. And you've got to submit yourself to other people who've done it well before to learn it. But this quick 6 months here, 2 years there, and then you're off and you have jobs, you have a hospital because connection, this is what I mean. And what do you deliver? Then people say, if this is all an architect can do, just give it to a draftsman, because the difference is too small.
But okay, you know, if the young ones like me decide to stick to a firm, they are also trying to survive. So then, well, it's a hand go hand come thing, because if the firms are not strong enough to do certain things, that means they are not strong enough to pay the people that work with them or give them an okay life. It's not going to be all sweet and nice, but even something that will be substantial, or something that will be left after they deduct their transportation, their feeding, coming to the office. If they're not able to take care of that, then why should the young ones stick to the firm?
Yeah. So I think that there are creative options. The times have changed. It's not my days in 1982 that you can use to run these goals. The goal should be there, but how do you gain it in these current times? And flex time is possible. So you have your own private time and you have some office time. It's a cooperation, contract work. Some of it is sacrificial. Look, because I walked doesn't mean everybody should walk to work. I like that.
I actually like that you said.
But the point is that the hardship toughened me, and I still kept the goal. So a lot of people can't take the hardship. They just want
a soft life.
Yeah. And so, yeah, you get it, but you never cook. So where is the balances? Where are the creative options in order to get around it?
Okay. So it's that balance that the young ones should look out for, to be well prepared or well armed for the practice, because it's a long, unless they don't intend to do it for long. Somebody like me who decided to jump off the boats and take a different path. But if they want to do it for a long time, then they should learn the craft very well. And that's what you said is actually true. The craft is not learned in 6 months or 2 years. It takes a long time. And this is coming from somebody who has spent the better part of his 5 years learning something. It takes a long time. And even now, I'm still not done learning.
Finally not done learning.
Please, when will you finish? At this point, it's 41 years, like 41.
A person is like a tree. It actually says this in the scriptures, that he who trusts in the Lord is like a tree. One of the characteristics of trees is that they are always growing. They never stop. It's only sickness or disease that kills a tree. A tree has growth space. And I think every human being, until you lay your head down, just keep growing.
Okay, then that's good. So until you lay your head down, you just keep going. As long as God has given you life the next day. That means that also means you've learned. Would you say you're the type that believes in self-development?
What do you mean?
Self-development.
Since we had to talk about self-employment, we should talk about self-development.
Okay, so constant self-development is looking at yourself and knowing or reviewing your life constantly every, say, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, depending on the time that you put in there. Looking at it and seeing, okay, I need to learn these new things to make myself better. I need to unlearn this to make myself better.
I think there's a spectrum of issues. Your learning is both inside you and also outside you in your skill levels, your relationships. But you also have to learn to read yourself. When your thought life is not healthy, you've got to learn to read it, and you're self-developing there. What truths do you believe in, and how well do you understand them in order to break the barriers to obeying them? Because there are a lot of barriers for living out what you actually believe, and we often all compromise about it. So part of your growth has to do with tackling that within you and becoming a better you. Then there's the skill things outside. There are hobbies. There's learn to dance. You see what I mean? Because it's a real to dance. No, I spoil the camera so you could try to trail me when I'm dancing. I don't have the rhythm.
It's like 2 left legs or it's 2 right legs.
But for fun, I mean, there are things to do with I used to paint and draw. I'm trying to get back into that. I want to learn to write.
At this time, I can't wait to read your book. I'm sure it will be full of sketches, because I like to read books with a lot of pictures in there.
So it's those types of things. I think growing and learning to relate with people, how to handle conflict better, and love a person through conflict.
Through conflicts.
We normally become enemies with conflict, but it doesn't have to be that. And it's a growing space.
I see. Okay. So in this section, We'll do a rapid fire. Say yes or no. In this current time. The first one is, in this current time, if you were to work in a firm that paid you less than 3,000 cedis and that promised to sharpen your skill, would you do it?
At my 41 years, I paid my dues.
Okay, so but that's at your 41 years.
Unless, you see, your yes or no is not fair, because there could be some reason what they're seeking to teach me can be far more valuable than 20,000 CDs. If I could get that sense, then maybe.
Then maybe. I see. No, but not at your 41 years. Picture just a young child or a young man, recent graduates from architecture school, coming out to practice. Would you do it in this current time?
I would have to work certain factors out. Am I prepared to move to find an accommodation close enough so that my transport cost doesn't eat into that? Those are some of the things I'll weigh before I say yes or no. Is the firm worth that experience? If it is, yeah.
Okay. Starting a design on paper or starting a design. Okay, this one is not really a yes or no. So it's an options question. Starting a design on paper or starting a design on the machine.
I draw so fast that I haven't known a computer be able to match the first put down of ideas.
How fast is that fast? I'll take a closer look at sketches and difference.
I used to finish ahead of juries in school because I draw fast. So it's natural for me. It's not true for everybody. But I realized that when you get past the first concept, when there are changes, the people who then have a computer version can make those changes faster.
Okay. We've had such a lovely conversation. And once again, I would like to thank you for your time. It's past 1 hour. And so, Mr. Ralph, I thank you so much for the time you spent talking to me and my audience, because it's me that have learned. As for them, they will learn secondhand because they watch it online. But yes, I hope to do this again, maybe later, when you have some free time next year.
I would like to say something to you.
Okay.
I think I admire your enthusiasm to do this and promote what you believe in, talking to other people, for other people to learn, and that you find the means, the two of you, to do this way. I want to encourage you. Our country needs people who think through things above the plane of business.
I'm more business oriented.
But in order to do something like this, there's some fine qualities in the two of you that should be commended and encouraged.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so keep it up.
Thank you, sir.